Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to completely flip how you look at disaster management. You know, usually when we think of a disaster, we picture something huge and highly visible, right? A massive flood, a hurricane, a blazing fire. But today, we're shifting gears. We are looking away from those visible hazards and zooming in on the invisible, super delicate web of 21st century threats. We're exploring a whole new class of catastrophe, one that doesn't necessarily start with a massive bang, but rather a silent ripple.
So I want you to really think about this for a second. Think of our modern society as a giant, intricately connected machine. Every single part of it, the power grid, the internet, the chemical supply chains bringing us goods, it is all delicately balanced. Now, we don't normally see these invisible systems when they're working perfectly, do we? But they are the literal lifeblood of our daily routine. So what happens when just one gear slips? In a machine this complex, a single isolated failure can make the entire structure shudder.
To break all this down, our agenda today covers 5 quick steps. 1. The invisible web. 2. The invisible physical threats. 3. The silent digital siege. 4. When systems cascade. And finally, engineering a resilient future. Let's jump right in.
Part 1. The invisible web. Let's look at the systemic risk behind how our modern world is built. Our world basically runs on this silent hum of power grids, data cables, and complex supply chains. And because these systems are so deeply woven together, they create a very unique vulnerability that experts call systemic risk. This is not your standard linear disaster. A failure in a highly interconnected system doesn't just stay in one place. It propagates. It triggers a cascading failure. Because of how our invisible web is built, this ripple effect actually amplifies the damage, rapidly mutating what should have been just a minor local issue into a full-blown national crisis. Moving to Part 2, the invisible physical threats. Specifically, we're looking at hazmat incidents. Hazardous materials quite literally fuel our modern lives, but under the wrong conditions, they instantly become weapons of mass disruption. When a hazmat incident kicks off, first responders don't just rush in like action heroes. Actually, they are trained under a very strict, highly choreographed doctrine: identify, isolate, notify. Step 1 is simply to look. Responders will literally use binoculars from a safe upwind distance just to figure out what they're dealing with. Step 2 is think. They're scanning facility walls for GHS pictograms, those diamond-shaped symbols with the red borders, or they're looking for a 4-digit UN number on a truck to look up in their emergency response guidebook. Only after knowing exactly what the chemical is do they move to Step 3, act. And that means establishing very strict hot, warm, and cold zones. And they are this cautious for a very good reason. They are trying to avoid terrifying mechanics like a BLEVE. That stands for Boiling Liquid Expanding Vapor Explosion. It's a mouthful, but it is one of the absolute biggest fears in any hazmat response. This happens when a pressurized tank, like a truck carrying liquid petroleum gas, gets exposed to extreme heat. The liquid inside boils, the pressure expands rapidly, and then the tank just violently ruptures. It explodes with such incredible force that it can send massive pieces of metal shrapnel flying for over a kilometer away.
To ground this a bit, let's look at how these invisible threats manifest in the real world, particularly in places like Nigeria, because this isn't just theoretical, it's a daily reality. Nigeria faces a really unique matrix of these hazards. We're talking frequent oil spills in the Niger Delta, the highly dangerous and illegal Kapa fire refining processes, toxic fumes from burning e-waste, and the ever-present danger of daily fuel tankers crashes on busy roadways. These physical threats are constantly testing the limits of local communities.
All right, Part 3, the silent digital siege. Let's switch gears and explore cyber-physical attacks. We are entering a whole new kind of warfare today, one that requires literally just a few lines of malicious code. To really grasp this, contrast a physical hazmat spill with a cyber-physical attack. A physical spill happens in the real world, right? You can see the liquid, you can tape off the area. But a cyber-physical attack? That targets digital control systems, specifically something called SCADA systems. SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. Think of these as the digital brains that manage our physical infrastructure. They open and close valves on real pipelines, they route actual electricity through the power grid, they secure our financial and healthcare data. The attack is entirely digital, but the destruction, it is entirely physical.
Just picture the horrifying potential of a coordinated ransomware attack on these critical systems. Because our race to digitize everything has vastly outpaced our cybersecurity, we are incredibly vulnerable right now. An attack on the banking sector could mean frozen ATMs nationwide. Nobody gets cash. Hacking a healthcare network could result in encrypted, completely inaccessible medical records right when doctors and patients need them most. Or an attack on the energy sector could quite literally plunge entire states into absolute darkness with a single command.
And the scary part? We don't even have to use our imaginations to know what that darkness looks like. Between 2022 and 2024, the repeated collapses of the Nigerian national grid served as a very stark, real-world rehearsal for these exact kinds of scenarios. Now, to be clear, these specific events were technical failures, not cyber attacks, but they perfectly proved a terrifying point about our chronic fragility. We saw firsthand how a single fire at one single electrical substation could trigger a catastrophic nationwide blackout.
Which brings us to part 4, when systems cascade. Let's look at the domino effect in action. This domino effect is basically the ultimate nightmare for disaster managers. It's where physical and digital failures completely merge together. Let's walk through a terrifying, hypothetical scenario in Lagos to visualize exactly how this goes down. At time 1, a major physical hazard hits, a flood in the Apapa area. Seems like a local problem, right? Just avoid the water. But at time 2, those floodwaters submerge a critical electrical substation. Boom, power goes down. Because the power is down, at time 3, the municipal water treatment pumps stop working. So suddenly, hospitals miles away lose their running water. By time 4, the backup batteries on the local cell towers run out of juice, and your mobile phone goes completely dead.
This right here is what experts call a multi-sector systemic collapse. In our interconnected reality, that initial flood in Apapa isn't just about water in the streets anymore. Because of all our deeply interdependent systems, it has morphed into a total blackout of communications, power, and transportation. The traffic lights go dark, the rail system grinds to a halt, and most frighteningly, isolated families can no longer even pick up a phone to call for emergency help.
But wait, there is a very human element injected into all this chaos too. When systems cascade and communications fail, we don't just face a physical disaster, we face information hazards. Disinformation acts as a massive force multiplier in these moments. In an information vacuum, rumors spread like wildfire, sabotaging public compliance, inciting panic, and rapidly eroding trust in the very authorities who are trying to manage the crisis. The invisible web of information becomes just as dangerous as a broken power grid.
Okay, let's take a breath. Part 5. Engineering a resilient future. How do we actually build resilience? So, how on earth do we fight an invisible, interconnected enemy like this? Well, disaster managers rely on a really robust resilience toolkit. The very first step is critical infrastructure dependency mapping. It's a long phrase, but basically we can't protect what we don't understand. So engineers meticulously map out exactly which hospital relies on which electrical substation and which specific fiber optic cable connects them. We also need resilience by design, meaning building systems with offline backups from day one. And to combat those information hazards we just talked about, authorities are focusing on pre-bunking, which is identifying and neutralizing false rumors before they ever have a chance to spread and cause a panic.
But honestly, my absolute favorite concept here is the analog fallback. Despite all of our incredible high-tech solutions, disaster managers know that sometimes the ultimate defense against a highly sophisticated cyber-physical disaster is incredibly simple: pen and paper. An analog fallback is a strict, paper-based operational plan. It ensures that when the screens go black, the SCADA systems lock up, and the internet completely dies, the human beings in charge still know exactly how to keep critical operations running manually.
Adopting these tools requires a massive shift in how we approach our whole society. Experts are calling for a new social contract. We really have to evolve our mindset here. We can no longer just be reactive responders, just sitting around waiting for the chemical spill or the grid collapse to happen before we rush in. We must become resilience engineers. We have to proactively design and build our infrastructure, our policies, and our communities to withstand these inevitable shocks from the very beginning.
And that brings us to our final thought today. Whether we're dealing with a highly volatile hazmat explosion or the completely silent strike of a digital siege, the ground truth remains exactly the same. The Earth doesn't discriminate, but our planning determines who survives. We absolutely have the tools to engineer a safer tomorrow, but it requires a fundamental shift in how we value preparedness. So I want to leave you with this question. When the invisible systems you rely on every single day finally go dark, what is your analog fallback? Thank you so much for joining this Explainer.